I had never thought much about where I came from. For 24 years, I lived my life believing that family wasn't about blood, but about love. I was found at a bus station in Chicago when I was 2 years old alone, shivering in the cold. No one in sight. No notes. No clues. Just a boy who didn't belong to anyone. I was one of the lucky ones. I was adopted by Jack and Ellen Matthews, a couple who had been trying for years to have children but never could. They loved me, raised me, never once made me feel like I wasn't theirs. So, I never cared about who left me behind. Why should I? That changed the day I received a letter. It arrived on a Thursday, in a plain white envelope with no return address. At first, I thought it was just another piece of junk mail, some credit card offer, or a political flyer. Then I saw my name, Lucas Matthews, not a generic resident or current homeowner. Someone had written my name by hand. I hesitated before opening it. Something about it made my stomach twist. Inside was a single sheet of paper, slightly yellowed, like it had been handled too many times before reaching me. Lucas, you don't know me, but I've known about you for a long time. I am your father. I know this must be a shock, but please, hear me out. I've spent years looking for you. I never wanted to leave you behind. I did what I had to do to keep you safe. There are things you don't know, things about your past that could put you in danger even now. Please, meet me. Just once. I owe you the truth. William Carter the First. Read it 3 times, my hands tightening around the edges. Father. The word felt foreign, like it didn't belong to me. I didn't have a father. I had Jack Matthews. I had the man who taught me how to ride a bike, who sat through my terrible middle school band concerts, who hugged me when I got my first college rejection letter. This William Carter? He was just a ghost. And now, he wants back in? I should have thrown the letter away. I should have laughed it off. But I couldn't. Because as much as I told myself I didn't care somewhere deep inside, I did. For 24 years, I never had an answer to the question, why? Why was I abandoned? Why was I left behind while someone else's child got to be loved? And now, the answer was sitting in my hands. All I had to do was take it. I spent the whole night staring at that letter, debating with myself. I Googled his name, William Carter, but found nothing. No social media, no news articles, not even a LinkedIn profile. He was a ghost, and that made me more curious. By morning, my mind was made up. I called the number written at the bottom of the letter. It rang 3 times before a deep voice answered. Lucas? I swallowed hard. Yeah, it's me. A pause. Then, thank you for calling. His voice was rough, strained, like someone who had spent years carrying a weight too heavy to bear. I don't know why you sent this, I said, my voice colder than I intended. But I'll give you one chance, one meeting. A breath of relief on the other end. I understand, he said. Tomorrow night, 8 p.m. There's a small cafe on 47th and Westbrook. Please. Just give me that much. I hesitated. Then, finally, fine. And I hung up. The cafe was almost empty when I walked in the next night. It smelled of burnt coffee and old newspapers. The kind of place that had probably been open since the 70s, and never once updated its menu. And there he was. William Carter. He was older than I expected. Not ancient, but worn down. Mid-50s, salt and pepper hair, dark circles under his eyes. When he saw me, he smiled a hesitant, almost broken thing. Lucas, he said, standing up. I didn't shake his hand. Talk, I said, sitting down across from him. He exhaled, running a hand through his graying hair. You probably have a lot of questions. I folded my arms. No. Just one. Why did you leave me? The smile faded. He looked down at his coffee, silent for a moment. Then, finally, because I had no choice. I scoffed. There's always a choice. His jaw tightened. Not this time. I leaned back, crossing my arms. Let me guess. You were young, scared, broke. You weren't ready to be a father, so you ran. His eyes met mine. And for the first time, I saw something I wasn't expecting. Fear. No, he said. I was running for my life. He reached into his coat and pulled out an old, folded-up photograph. I hesitated before taking it. When I opened it, my breath caught. It was a picture of William much younger standing with a group of men in dark suits. Something about them felt wrong. Like a shadow lurking just beneath the surface. Who are they? I asked. William exhaled slowly. They were the reason I had to leave you. My stomach twisted. What the hell are you talking about? I was part of something, he said. A group. A family business. And when I tried to leave, they didn't take it well. My grip on the photo tightened. Your mother, he continued, voice strained. She tried to protect you. She wanted us to run together. But they, he swallowed. They made sure she didn't get far. The air between us turned to ice. I stared at him, my heart pounding. My mother's dead? He nodded. I didn't know what to say. I had spent years telling myself I didn't care about my past. that I had no interest in who my biological parents were. And now, I was sitting across from a man I had never met before, learning that my mother had died trying to protect me from people I never knew existed. William looked at me, eyes full of something close to desperation. "I'm telling you this," he said, "because they haven't forgotten. And now that I've found you, I'm afraid they might come for you too." A chill ran down my spine. I didn't believe him. I couldn't. Because if he was telling the truth, then my whole life, everything I thought I knew about myself, had just been a lie. My hands trembled as I stared at the photograph. The men in the picture, they weren't just some old friends of my father. They had the look of men who belonged to a world where silence was currency, and loyalty was paid in blood. And my father, William Carter, was one of them. I forced myself to look back at him, trying to keep my voice steady. "You're telling me," I said slowly, "that my mother was murdered because of you?" William flinched. He reached for his coffee cup, his fingers tightening around it like he needed something solid to hold on to. "It wasn't supposed to happen like that," he said, voice raw. "We were supposed to leave together. She had everything planned. New identities. A place to hide. But I was a fool. I thought I could reason with them. That if I just explained, if I just told them I was out, they'd let us go." He let out a bitter laugh, shaking his head. "I was wrong. I felt sick. Everything in me wanted to believe he was lying. That this was just some elaborate story. An excuse. But the way he looked at me, haunted, broken, made me wonder if I was standing face to face with a man drowning in the weight of his own past. "Who are they?" I asked. William hesitated. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, he said, "The Corsetti Syndicate." The name sent a chill down my spine. Even if you weren't involved in crime, you knew who the Corsetti Syndicate was. One of the oldest, most powerful criminal organizations in the country. Extortion. Arms deals. Assassinations. The kind of people who didn't just kill you, they erased you. I exhaled sharply, gripping the edges of the table. "You were one of them," I said. It wasn't a question. William nodded. "For years. And my mother?" He looked away. "She wasn't supposed to be involved, but she knew too much. And when she tried to take you, they saw it as betrayal." I clenched my jaw, the realization hitting me like a punch to the gut. "They killed her," I said. William swallowed hard. "Yes." I pushed back my chair abruptly, the scrap of metal against tile making people glance in our direction. "I should go," I said. "Lucas," I stood up. "No. You don't get to drop something like this on me and expect me to just, what, forgive you? Feel sorry for you?" His hands clenched into fists. "That's not why I told you." "Then why?" I demanded. "Why now?" He hesitated, then said something that made my stomach drop. "Because I think they know where you are." I stared at him. "You're lying," I said. "I wish I was." William leaned in, lowering his voice. "A week ago, I was followed. I saw the same car 3 nights in a row. I went to an old contact, someone still on the inside. He told me your name came up. My blood turned to ice." "My name?" He nodded. "They were looking into you. I don't know why. Maybe they just found out I had a kid. Maybe they think you know something." I swallowed hard. "I don't know anything," I said. "But they don't know that," William replied. "And the Corsettists don't take chances." A heavy silence settled between us. This was insane. It had to be. I was nobody. Just a guy living his life, working a normal job, engaged to a woman who had no idea any of this was happening. And yet, if William was telling the truth, if the Corsetti Syndicate had somehow put me on their radar, then I was in more danger than I could even comprehend. I took a shaky breath, my heart pounding. "What do they want?" I asked. William sighed. "I don't know." "You expect me to believe that?" He rubbed his face, looking exhausted. "They could want leverage over me. They could think you have something. Or maybe they just want to tie up loose ends." A lump formed in my throat. Loose ends. As in, kill me just to be safe. I sat back down, my mind racing. "What do I do?" I asked. William hesitated. "You could leave. Disappear. Change your name. Move across the country. I could help." "No," I cut in. "I'm not running." He gave me a long look. "Then you need to be careful." I exhaled sharply, running a hand through my hair. This was too much. I had come here thinking I'd get some closure, some meaningless apology from a man I'd never known. Instead, I got a death sentence. And the worst part? I didn't even know if I believed him. But if he was right, if the Corsettists really were watching me, then I had to figure out my next move. And I had to do it fast. I left the cafe in a haze. The cold Chicago night air hit my face like a slap, but it did nothing to clear my mind. I had walked in expecting some half-baked excuse from a man who had abandoned me. Instead, I walked out knowing that my mother was murdered. My father was a former criminal, and I was possibly being hunted by one of the most powerful crime syndicates in the country. It didn't feel real. It couldn't be real. But my gut told me it was. And that terrified me more than anything. I didn't go home right away. I walked, for blocks. for hours, trying to make sense of it all. At some point, I pulled out my phone and called the one person I thought might have answers Daniel. Daniel Wright was someone I had gone to high school with, but while I went to college and got a normal job, he had gone the other way. He knew people, knew things. If anyone could tell me whether William was full of it, or if I was actually in danger, it was him. He picked up on the third ring. Right. I exhaled. It's Lucas. A pause. Then, damn. Been a while. Thought you went all corporate on me. Yeah. Well, something came up. Daniel chuckled. That sounds ominous. What kind of something? I hesitated. Then, have you ever heard of the Corsetti Syndicate? The line went dead silent. For a moment, I thought the call had dropped. Then Daniel spoke again, his voice lower. Lucas, he said carefully. Tell me you didn't just say that name. I swallowed hard. So you have heard of them. He let out a sharp breath. Everybody's heard of them. But normal people don't say their name out loud. That's how you end up missing. I felt a cold weight settle in my chest. Daniel continued. Where the hell is this coming from? Because if you're mixed up in something with them, my father, I said. He used to work for them. He just told me they're looking for me. Daniel cursed under his breath. Jesus, Lucas. If that's true, you need to get the hell out of town. I'm not running, I said. My voice harder than I expected. Daniel let out a short laugh. Then you're a damn idiot. You don't run into a burning building, man. These people, they don't care who you are. If they think you're a problem, you're gone. I clenched my jaw. I just need to know if it's true. If they really are looking for me. Daniel was silent for a long moment. Finally, he sighed. I'll ask around. But if I were you, I'd start packing a bag. Just in case. The line went dead. I stared at my phone, my pulse thudding in my ears. I didn't want to believe it. But every instinct in me screamed that I had just stepped onto very dangerous ground. By the time I got back to my apartment, it was past midnight. The lights were still on. I frowned. I always turned them off before leaving. My stomach tightened. I stepped inside slowly, scanning the room. Everything looked the same. The furniture was untouched. My laptop was still on the desk. But something felt off. I closed the door behind me, locking it carefully. Then, I saw it. A playing card on the coffee table, face up. The ace of spades. My blood ran cold. I had never seen that card before. It hadn't been there when I left. Someone had been in my apartment. And they had left a message. The ace of spades was a warning. A mark. Someone was watching me. And that meant William was right. I barely slept that night. Every sound made me flinch. Every shadow looked like a threat. By morning, my head was pounding, but I had made a decision. I wasn't going to sit around and wait for them to come to me. If the Corsetti Syndicate thought I was a problem, I needed to know why. And the only person who could tell me was the man I had sworn I wanted nothing to do with. I called William. He answered immediately, like he had been waiting. You were telling the truth, I said without preamble. A pause. Then, what happened? They were in my apartment. William cursed. Did they take anything? Leave anything? Just a card. What card? The ace of spades. The line went dead silent. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, William said, Lucas, you need to get out of there, now. I didn't ask questions. I grabbed my keys, my wallet, and the emergency cash I kept stashed in my closet. Within minutes, I was in my car, heading toward the only place I could think of William. I didn't trust him. I didn't like him. But if what he said was true, he was the only one who knew what the Corsetti Syndicate wanted from me. And if they had already been inside my apartment, I wasn't waiting around to see what their next move would be. William had given me an address. Some rundown motel on the edge of the city. When I pulled into the parking lot, I scanned the area, checking every car, every window. Nothing. But that didn't mean I wasn't being watched. I knocked on the door 3 times. William answered instantly. He barely looked like the same man I'd met the day before. His face was more drawn, his posture tense, like he'd been pacing for hours. The second I stepped inside, he locked the door behind me. You're sure no one followed you? He asked. I rolled my eyes. I don't know, William. Maybe ask the guys who broke into my apartment and left me a cute little playing card as a warning. His jaw tightened. Damn it. I folded my arms. You gonna tell me what it means, or do I have to guess? William exhaled sharply. The ace of spades, he said, is a calling card. A mark. If they left it for you, it means you've been chosen. A chill ran down my spine. Chosen for what? He hesitated. Then, for recruitment. I laughed. A short, sharp, bitter sound. Recruitment? What? Like a job offer. In a way, William muttered. The Corsetti Syndicate doesn't just kill people for fun, Lucas. If they can use you, they will. And if they've marked you, it means they think you have value. I shook my head. That doesn't make any sense. I don't know anything. I have nothing to do with them. You're my son, he said simply. That's enough. I clenched my fists. So what do they want? William ran a hand through his hair. Control. Leverage. A pawn in their game. I scoffed. Well, they can find someone else. I'm not playing. William's expression hardened. You don't get to decide that. Not anymore. I sat down, running a hand over my face. Start talking, I said. Tell me everything. William took a deep breath. The Corsetti Syndicate isn't just a gang. It's a dynasty. It's been around for over a century, and it runs deeper than you can imagine. Politics. Law enforcement. Corporate deals. They don't just control crime, they control people. I swallowed hard. And you worked for them? For years, he admitted. I handled logistics, money laundering, but I wanted out. I thought I could buy my freedom. I narrowed my eyes. You thought wrong. A bitter smile. Very. I leaned forward. And my mother? William's expression darkened. She tried to get me out. She had connections. People who could help us disappear. But when they found out, his voice trailed off. I didn't need to hear the rest. I already knew what had happened. She had paid the price for loving him. For loving me. I exhaled slowly. So what happens next? William hesitated. They'll make contact. Maybe tonight. Maybe tomorrow. They'll give you an offer. Something you can't refuse. And if I do? He met my eyes. Then they kill you. A heavy silence settled between us. I should have been scared. I should have felt helpless. But all I felt was anger. For years, I thought I had been abandoned. Now, I knew the truth. I had been hunted since the day I was born. And I wasn't going to run. I was going to fight. All right, I said, standing up. Then let's make the first move. William frowned. What are you talking about? You said they're coming for me, right? Yes. Then we don't wait, I said. We go to them first. William looked at me like I was insane. Lucas, no one walks into the Corsetti Syndicate's house and walks out alive. I smirked. Then we make them think we're not walking in alone. If William thought I was just going to sit around and wait for the Corsetti Syndicate to come knocking, he didn't know me at all. I wasn't going to run. I wasn't going to hide. I was going to make them look me in the eye and explain why they thought they had any control over my life. And if they wanted me to play their game, then I'd make damn sure I played it on my terms. William paced the motel room, shaking his head. This is suicide, he muttered. You don't just walk into the Corsetti Syndicate's territory uninvited. Then we make them invite me, I said. William shot me a sharp look. You're insane. I smirked. You raised me right, didn't you? His face hardened. Don't joke about that. I exhaled. Look, if they're watching me, they already know where I am. They already marked me. The worst thing I can do is act scared. That gives them power. William clenched his jaw. And what do you think walking into their den is going to do? Show them that I'm not afraid, I said. Show them that I'm not just some pawn. William studied me for a long time. Then, finally, he sighed. You really are your mother's son, he murmured. I had Daniel put out the word. If the Corsetti Syndicate wanted to talk, I was willing to listen. But on my terms. It didn't take long to get a response. A burner phone showed up at my doorstep the next morning. It rang the second I picked it up. A smooth, deep voice spoke on the other end. Lucas Carter, the man said, his tone laced with amusement. I must say, you're a bold one. Who am I talking to? I asked. A short chuckle. Call me Mr. Rossi. I represent mutual interests. I clenched my jaw. So you work for them. I work for opportunity, Rossi corrected. And right now, you are one. I swallowed my anger. Then let's get to it. What do you want? Rossi exhaled. A meeting. Tonight. 10 p.m. The old Redwood Club on 14th Street. I didn't hesitate. I'll be there. Of course you will, Rossi said, and I could hear the smile in his voice. We'll be waiting. The line went dead. William looked ready to punch a hole in the wall. You just made the biggest mistake of your life, he snapped. I made a choice, I corrected. He exhaled sharply. The Redwood Club? Do you even know what that place is? A syndicate-owned bar, I said. I did my research. Then you should know that no one who walks in there without power walks out. I met his gaze. Then I guess I better make sure I have power. William stared at me for a long moment. Then, with a defeated sigh, he turned to the closet. When he turned back, he was holding a gun. I frowned. What's that for? William's expression darkened. In case talking doesn't work. I hesitated. I had never held a gun before, let alone used one. But if things went south, I reached out and took it. And just like that, the game had truly begun. The club was exactly what I expected, old money mixed with organized crime. The kind of place where men in expensive suits whispered about deals that shaped entire industries. While sipping whiskey worth more than my rent, two men in dark suits flanked the entrance. They didn't ask who I was. They already knew. One of them patted me down. His hand hesitated at the gun under my jacket. Then, after a brief nod, he stepped aside. Go in, he said. I did. The bar was dimly lit. jazz music humming in the background. At the far end of the room, sitting in a plush leather booth, was Mr. Rossi. And he wasn't alone. 3 men sat beside him, all watching me like a predator sizing up its prey. I squared my shoulders and walked forward. "Lucas Carter," Rossi said smoothly, gesturing to the seat across from him. "Please sit." I didn't like the way he said my name, like he already owned it. But I sat anyway. Because I needed answers. Rossi leaned back, swirling his drink. "You remind me of your father," he mused. "The same fire. The same stubbornness." I clenched my jaw. "I'm nothing like him." Rossi smirked. "We'll see." I folded my arms. "You wanted to talk. So talk." Rossi exhaled. "Very well. Let's be direct. You were marked because we believe you have potential. You could be useful to us." I scoffed. "Not interested." "That's a shame," Rossi said, tilting his head. "Because we don't take no very well." I met his gaze. "Then maybe you should stop wasting your time." The room went silent. Then Rossi chuckled. "Brave," he murmured. "But bravery is only useful when paired with intelligence. So tell me, Lucas, are you a smart man?" I exhaled sharply. "I'd like to think so." "Then you should understand something." He leaned forward, his voice dropping. "We don't offer choices. We offer fate. And yours has already been decided." A chill ran down my spine. "Work for us," Rossi continued. "Or we remove you from the equation." A simple statement. A death sentence. I clenched my fists. "So that's it?" I said. "Join you, or die." Rossi smiled. "Yes." I took a slow breath. Then I leaned forward, meeting his gaze. And I lied through my teeth. "Fine," I said. "I'll work for you." Rossi's smirk widened. Smart man. But he had no idea. Because if the Corsetti Syndicate thought they could own me, they were about to find out just how wrong they were. I walked out of the Redwood Club with a death sentence hanging over my head. Rossi thought he had won. He thought I was his now. Another soldier. Another pawn. But he had no idea. Because if the Corsetti Syndicate thought I was going to bend the knee, they were in for a surprise. I wasn't just going to fight back. I was going to burn them to the ground. William was waiting for me at the motel when I got back. The second I stepped inside, he was on me. "What the hell happened?" he demanded. "Did you meet them?" I tossed the burner phone Rossi had given me onto the bed. "Yeah. And I agreed to work for them." William's face went pale. "Lucas, no. Relax," I cut in. I lied. He exhaled sharply, running a hand through his graying hair. "Jesus. Kid. You have no idea what you just got yourself into." "I know exactly what I got myself into," I said. "And I know exactly how I'm going to get out." William frowned. "How?" I sat down, leaning forward. "Simple," I said. "We take them down from the inside." William laughed. A short, bitter sound. "You're insane," he muttered. I smirked. "No. I'm just done running." The Corsetti Syndicate was powerful. But power makes people lazy. Rossi thought I was just some lost son looking for a place in the world. He thought I was desperate to belong. That was his first mistake. I wasn't desperate. I was angry. And angry men made dangerous enemies. I spent the next few days gaining their trust. They tested me. Sent me to small jobs picking up packages, delivering messages. They wanted to see if I would break. I didn't. I played the role perfectly. Obedient, silent, dangerous when necessary. And all the while I was gathering intel. Because if I was going to destroy them, I needed to know where to strike. The breakthrough came sooner than expected. One night, I was sent to meet a man named Vincent Falco, a mid-level operative in the Corsetti hierarchy. He was drunk when I found him, stumbling out of a bar, his shirt untucked, his gun barely hidden under his jacket. I helped him into his car, and as he sat there, rubbing his temples, he mumbled something that caught my attention. "Stupid bastards don't even know," he slurred. "Don't know what?" I asked casually. Falco chuckled, shaking his head. "That the feds are already inside." My blood ran cold. I kept my face neutral. "The FBI?" He smirked. "Yeah. They've been sniffing around for months. They got someone inside. Someone close." I clenched my jaw. This changed everything. Because if the FBI already had an informant, that meant I wasn't fighting alone. It meant I had a way out. The next night, I made my move. I slipped away from the Corsetti men watching me, and went to the only place I knew was safe, Daniel's place. He took one look at me inside. "You look like you just signed your own death warrant," he muttered. I smirked. "Not yet. But I might be close." I told him everything. About Falco. About the FBI informant. About my plan. Daniel cursed under his breath. "Jesus," he muttered. "You're serious about this?" "Damn right I am," I said. He studied me for a long moment. Then, finally, he pulled out his phone. "I have a contact," he said. "Used to be a detective. He works with the feds now. If there's an informant inside Corsetti, he'll know." I nodded. "Call him." 2 days later, I sat across from Agent Mark Hastings in a quiet diner outside of town. He was in his late 40s, dressed in a plain suit, his eyes sharp and calculating. He didn't waste time. "Who the hell are you?" he asked. I leaned forward. "I'm the guy who can hand you the Corsetti Syndicate on a silver platter." Hastings raised an eyebrow. "That's a big claim." I smirked. "I never make small ones." He studied me for a long moment. Then, slowly, he nodded. "All right," he said. "Talk." I told Hastings everything. The ace of spades. The recruitment. The meetings I had been attending. He listened without interrupting. When I was done, he leaned back, exhaling. "You're playing a dangerous game, kid." "I know," I said. Hastings tapped his fingers against the table. "You said they trust you now?" "Enough," I admitted. "Then here's what you're going to do," he said. "You're going to keep playing your part. Get us what we need. When the time is right, we'll move in." I swallowed hard. This was it. The point of no return. "How do I know you'll keep me alive?" I asked. Hastings smirked. "You don't. Fair enough." I stood up. "I'll be in touch," I said. And then I walked away. 2 weeks later, the Corsetti Syndicate was finished. The FBI raided their operations in a coordinated strike. Rossi? Arrested. Falco? Dead. The Redwood Club? Burned to the ground. And me? I disappeared. The FBI gave me a new identity, a new life, a fresh start. And for the first time in my life I was free. I met William one last time before I left. He looked tired. Older than he had just a few weeks ago. "You did it," he said quietly. I nodded. "Yeah, I did." A long pause. Then, "So what now?" I exhaled. "I don't know. But whatever it is, I'm doing it on my own." William nodded slowly. "I'm proud of you," he said. I didn't know if he meant it, but for once, I didn't care. I turned, walked to my car, and drove off, without looking back. Somewhere, in some city far from Chicago, a man with a new name wakes up every morning without fear, without the weight of the past dragging him down. Lucas Carter is gone. And whoever I am now, that's up to me to decide.